get started. Welcome to Leader Lifestyle Hub. As we have set the target of completing 200 book summaries in the entire year, here it comes book number 112 out of 200. And the name of the book that we have today is QBQ. The question behind the question: practicing personal accountability at work and in life, written by John G. Miller. Before going further, let us see the information about the author, John G. Miller. John G. Miller is a founder of QBQ Incorporation, an organizational development company dedicated to making personal accountability a core value for organizations and individuals. So it is all about personal accountability, and it also worked with the hundreds of Fortune 500 companies and governmental and non-governmental organizations around the world. So he is the founder of QBQ Incorporation and also personal accountability. So he's an expert of personal accountability. So let us see the targeted audience of this book, QBQ. The 17-year high school student, means those who are students who loves to gossip and blame others for their misfortunes. And the 45-year computer programmer or a software programmer who has just lost their job. Means the senior programmers or software employees who lost their jobs. For them, this book will help them. Anyone who has ever asked themselves, why me? Why it is happened only to me? This type of questions, whoever asks, for them, this book will give proper guidance. Let us see the small synopsis. QBQ will teach you to ask better questions and stay accountable, and why doing so will change every aspect of your life for the better. Means how you can change your life into the better version by asking the better questions. Let us listen from the author John G. Miller himself. If we ask a better question, we get a better answer. Let me repeat the statement. If we ask a better question, we get a better answer. Imagine you are enjoying a nice lunch at your favorite restaurant. Suppose you are going for a favorite restaurant and you are ordered for nice lunch, the favorite food that you love to eat, and you are eating it and you are enjoying it. As a busy waiter takes your order, you request to have a Diet Coke to drink. Unfortunately, the young man informs you that they only have Pepsi. Not wanting to take too long, you let him know that it is all right and think nothing of it as he hurries off. Eventually, your food comes and you begin to enjoy your meal. Moments later, you hear a flurry of activity behind you, and before you know it, there is a nice cold 20-ounce bottle of Diet Coke in front of you. I thought you said that you didn't sell Coke. You ask the diligent waiter. He responds with, we don't, but the grocery store around the corner did. As you question who paid for it, and the boy mentions that he did, you are taken back in amazement. What incredible service. This is just what happened to author John Miller, as he describes at the beginning of his book QBQ. The question behind the question: practicing personal accountability at work and in life. This diligent young waiter perfectly exemplifies what it means to have the right attitude. A trait that you will soon see is a simple matter of asking better questions. Let us see the top 3 lessons from this book. Here are the 3 most life-changing questions and lessons that this book teaches us about having the right attitude when life gets hard, or when your life is going through ups and downs, and when you are facing the challenges in your life. At that time, these 3 lessons will help us. Ask questions that begin with what or how rather than why, when, or who. Ask questions that begin with what or how rather than why, when, or who. Let us see second powerful lesson. Instead of asking questions about they, them, we, or you, make sure that you focus on yourself by including I. Your question should include I. And the third powerful lesson is nothing but the best questions are action focused. Try to include the question based on the action focused instead of just conveying the experience. Get your thinking cap on and let us learn how to ask better questions. Let us see lesson number 1. Rather than asking why, when, or who, make sure that you start your queries with what or how. There are two types of questions, the wrong questions and the correct questions. The wrong questions that lead to inaction and pain are called IQs. IQ stands for incorrect questions in here terminology. These are the questions like why me, why it happened only to me, why all the other people are good, why only I am suffering, that come up after something goes wrong. In contrast, QBQ is behind those initial negative thoughts we might have when a difficulty arises. Learning to ask the QBQ will help you successfully navigate any hardship. Think of how you feel when you hear questions like these. Let us take a few questions. Example, when is the management going to provide us with more products? Or when is my company is going to give me salary appraisal? Why are we always so short-staffed? Why don't they hire more and more people? When are the customers going to learn to read the menu? So these type of questions, when we read or when we think of how you feel, just feel, how do you feel? You feel like little ups and downs. Let us see, each of these statements is full of blame, negativity, and a disturbing lack of ownership. So all these questions are full of blame, negativity, and disturbing lack of ownership. On the flip side, QBQs always start with what or how, like this. What can I do to make this situation better? How can I do this differently in a way that works? If you ask this type of questions, you will get courage and confidence to move further. What can I do to make this situation better? How can I do this differently in a way that works? Reading those questions and asking ones like them is empowering. It's like a recharging. They are full of opportunity, enthusiasm, and ownership. QBQs help your brain change from a state of feeling victimized to a focus on how to make a difference and move forward. Just like the young man at the restaurant, people that ask QBQs have a natural energy about them and they get ahead in life. The first step to forming a QBQ is to begin with what or how, and must include I. That will be the informing in lesson number 2. So let us see the lesson number 2. When you focus on yourself by including I in your questions, you develop the rare and valuable habit of accountability, which is nothing but personal accountability. People these days seem to be all about blaming everyone but themselves for their problems. Generally, we blame others rather than blaming ourselves. We hear people say of their troubles, it is just the way it is, without any hope for changing their situation. Many feel entitled to benefits without any willingness to become proactive and accountable for improving their situation. Don't be like the same rest of the world. Instead of blaming everything else for your problems, maintain accountability by asking the questions with I in the questions. Doing so will help you take ownership over aspects of your life that you feel you can never improve. Things that seem permanent to you now will become changeable when you put I into your questions. Some situations prove to have barriers that seem insurmountable. Often, we find ourselves focusing only on these problems and our limitations rather than what we can change. By asking questions with I in them, we shift the focus from what we can't improve to what we can. This is most important. So, by including I in your question, what will happen? We shift the focus from what we cannot improve to what we can. Once we do that, our situation seems so much better. So whenever you ask question to yourself, to others, try to put what or how in the first phase and try to include I in your question. Then you will see the empowering question instead of asking the question for just asking. Let us see the lesson number 3. To master the QBQ, the question behind the question, ask questions that focus on action. So, lot of questions will be asked based on the emotions or based on the acknowledgements. But what we need to do is ask questions that focus on action. Even though we may initially fear the risks of taking action, not acting is a greater risk. If you don't act, then that will be a greater risk. As John Miller teaches that action, even when it leads to mistakes, brings learning and growth. This is one of the powerful quote I love. Action, even when it leads to mistakes, brings learning and growth. Inaction brings stagnation and atrophy. So let me repeat this statement again. Action, even if it leads to mistakes, brings learning and growth. Inaction brings stagnation and atrophy. When we move forward, even if we are not entirely sure, we express the courage to find solutions to our problems. In circumstances where we fail to act, we stagnate from remaining stuck in the past. I have had many experiences where action solved even the grisliest of the problems. In times when I was uncertain if what I thought to do would work, I always progressed from the feedback I received only after acting. A few years ago, an immediate family member was in the hospital with a semi-serious condition. At first, we were terrified and heartbroken by the gravity of the situation. Fortunately, I was reading QBQ at that time. As I began asking questions like, what can I do to help? And how can I improve this situation? Things started to get better. Even though I'm not a medical professional, I discovered steps I could take to help my loved one because I asked the right questions to myself. Thankfully, their condition improved rapidly and they surprised everyone by coming home earlier than what expected time. This family member is healthy and well today, and I attribute that in part to my learning how to ask QBQ questions. Asking QBQs is as simple as combining all of the 3 principles. Start with what or how, include I, and focus on action. With practice, you will become a master at the QBQ and your life will dramatically improve further. Thank you so much for listening the book summary. See you in another book summary tomorrow. Until then, stay connected, keep progressing. And if you have any questions, ask in the same format. Include what or how, include I in your question, and apply focusing on action. Share your questions in